I opened my eyes, and there was nothing. It was literally absolute darkness everywhere I was looking, and I could see nothing through it. It was just literal blackness, the darkest dark you'd ever seen in your life. And then I noticed around me all the screams.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Odd Virginia. It has officially been a year, and as we move into this October season, I'm going to be bringing you the scariest stories from around Virginia that I can possibly find. Now, unfortunately, with a sudden change of weather, I caught a pretty nasty cold just a couple of days ago. Sorry if I don't sound the best, but the show, as always, is going to go on. Now, this October, I've got quite a few TV shows and movies on deck that I'm very excited to watch. I've been watching a little Are You Afraid of the Dark, and soon I'm going to move on to Ghostbusters 1 and 2, and probably watch Ernest Scared Stupid on Halloween night. Now, if you guys have any good suggestions of what you'll be watching and maybe I should check out as well, go ahead and post those in the comments section if you're watching on YouTube. And if you're not watching on YouTube, I know the majority of our listeners are usually either on Spotify or Stitcher. Do us a favor if you can and just hop over to our YouTube channel and hit the subscribe button. It'll really help us increase our reach and hopefully bring in a lot more stories that we can share with you all. So it would really mean a lot to me if you did that. Now, in recent news, I've had my first ever UFO sighting. I'm very excited to share that with you guys. It wasn't anything spectacular. I was out with a friend camping near Stewart's Draft, Virginia, and my friend had actually left to go to the store and pick up some things, and I was sitting out in the dark tending to the fire by myself, and as I was looking up at the night sky, watching the stars and watching airplanes go by, I noticed one that was twinkling, and I thought I was seeing things because every now and then this little red and white star that was twinkling would occasionally move. And it wasn't moving crazy fast or in any weird patterns. It was sort of like watching a goldfish in a goldfish bowl, how it sort of swim a little distance and stop and float and then swim again. And I watched this thing for a good 30 minutes and it just kept doing that. It couldn't have been an airplane because it wasn't moving at a constant rate. And it wasn't a star because stars don't move across the sky. So I pointed it out to my friends and they were like, oh cool, you're seeing something weird, as if it was almost nothing. And didn't even sit and watch it with me, but I sat and stared at that thing, and it was there for a couple hours before I just got tired of checking up on it, and who knows what it was, really. It just wasn't a star, it wasn't a satellite, and it certainly wasn't an airplane. So I don't know. Anyway, today I have had the opportunity to interview a young man named Matt who lives in Southwest Virginia, and he had a terrifying near-death experience where he believes he went to hell for a moment. And after coming out of that, his whole life has been changed. So I'm going to let Matt tell you all about that here in just a moment. But if you have a story you'd like to share on Odd Virginia, send us an email at oddvirginia@protonmail.com. And also check out our Instagram, where we'll be sharing stuff with you that is not always going to be on the show. That is odd.virginia on Instagram. Because here at Odd Virginia,
we're ready to believe you.
Okay, today I have Matt joining us for the show. Matt's someone who stumbled upon the show while looking for Virginia podcasts to listen to and ended up finding our show to share his stories. And when he emailed me, oh boy, there's a lot going on there. So Matt, I want to thank you for that and welcome to the show. How are you doing?
I'm all right, and I appreciate you and everything that you do, and I'm doing okay right now.
Well, that's good to hear, and thank you so much. When you emailed me, we discussed a little bit of what you have going on in and around your property and your area in general. And you also emailed me some photographic and video evidence that you've captured to kind of corroborate these stories that you're about to tell today. So with your permission, I'm going to upload those onto a Google Drive so that anyone who's listening can actually click that link in the show notes and follow along and look at those bits of corroborative evidence if they so desire. But let's start out first with a little about you and yourself and where all this is going down.
Well, I'm Matt. I'm around 30 years old, and I'm living in southwestern Virginia in a little area in Tassel County, and never had anything weird happen to me my whole life. Just everything was normal. Didn't expect nothing. Just live a normal life. Till about 2 years ago, when I was in a severe accident and had a near death experience, and that completely changed my world.
So all of that you sent me in that email was just the last 2 years.
Yeah.
Holy moly, you must not get any sleep. That's crazy. I mean, that's just a lot packed into a short amount of time there.
I know. Everything opened up for me after the date of February 26th of 2020.
And so what is it that happened on that date that ended up flipping everything upside down for you?
I was working for a tree service, and we were removing some trees for a gas line, and we were using pulley winches to pull the tree in the direction we wanted it to fall. I'd never done that type of stuff before, and they had run my rope too in another tree. And when the tree was falling, it acted like it it uh it caught in that other tree, and it yanked that winch up toward my face. It hit me in the face, and it crushed the right side of my face. It crushed the whole jaw, and it had completely sliced open my face, and it just shredded it. It looked, I can't really describe it because it just looked like what you put in like a meat processor,
Ooh.
and it threw me about 5 feet in the air. I came back and hit myself in the head and real hard, and had just near, and don't know how I didn't not get knocked out, but I didn't, and scared all the people up there on the work site to death. They rushed me to the hospital. By the time I made it to the hospital, I had lost 4 pints of blood, and they don't know how I even survived.
Well, I'm glad that you're able to come here and tell the story. You shouldn't have survived that. No way.
No, and during that time, when they said they was going to put me under to slow my heart rate and everything else, and put me on a ventilator and stuff to keep the bleeding as low as possible, till they medified me to Roanoke to get repair the bleeding and stop all that and do all the surgeries I would need to go through. Um, I had that near death experience, and during that, what it was is I opened my eyes and there was nothing. It was literally absolute darkness everywhere I was looking, and I could see nothing through it. It was just literal blackness, the darkest dark you'd ever seen in your life.
Just an abyss.
Yep. And then I noticed that my body was in just constant pain. Like all the nerve endings in my body were like on fire. Every one of them was burning all at once. And then I noticed around me all the screams, like people screaming in agony and torture and despair and stuff. I could tell you, I can't describe it, I guess is the way to put it, just because there's nothing I've ever heard on this earth that matches what I heard then.
Was it like just a legion of people screaming out of sheer pain and agony?
Yeah, pretty much.
Wow. Wow. And this was still in complete blackness.
Yeah. Then I felt a presence of maliciousness and just evil and hate coming towards me. And I felt like that was a demon. And and there was like nothing I could do. I couldn't get up and run. I couldn't do nothing. I was just stuck where I was. And, then I just started thinking to myself, is this my fate? I mean, at the time before this, I was agnostic. I just want to state that. I believed something was there, but didn't know what to call it. And then I just I started to pray and ask God for forgiveness and asked him to don't let this be the end of me. And then the next thing I know, there was a beautiful shining white light in front of me. And there was a man standing in it. And he reached out his hand to me. And with everything in me, I reached my hand towards him. And as I was grasping his hand, something also grabbed my ankle, and that's when I also awoke from my coma, but I wasn't supposed to awake. I woken up on the second day I was in the hospital before they was about to do the second surgery to repair the jaw and stuff. And I woke up from the coma, and sorry, I get real anxious talking about it and
It's
stuff.
okay. I was wondering, were you unconscious for 2 days before you woke up from the coma?
Yeah, about a day and a half.
Okay.
And but I woke up when I wasn't supposed to because I still had the ventilator in my throat, still hooked up all of the machines and everything like that. And they was about to perform the second surgery on my jaw to repair the bone and everything like that. And I know I had doctors and everything freaking out, wanting me to go back to sleep because they was afraid I was going to start ripping the tubes out and stuff like that. And but I remember just being super happy to be alive.
I'd imagine. Yeah. Especially after what you'd just been through.
Yeah, I remember just being super happy just to be alive and to just know that I was not in that place. It just, I don't, man, that place was just utterly terrifying.
Yeah, it sounds like it. And when you were greeted by the man in the bright light, did you get a good look at him? What he looked like?
No, I didn't get to see his face because the light covered his face. Like, yeah, but like his body was more like he was dressed like a normal person. He was just in white, but his skin was more like a Middle Eastern type person.
Okay. That's very interesting. Very, very interesting. And do you believe that when you were in this dark abyss with the screaming and the agony, do you think that was hell?
I do, honestly, yeah. I think it was. I do. I think I was there for a moment.
Or perhaps even just at the gates? But yeah, whatever
Yeah.
was there didn't want to let you go, it sounds like.
No. And I think when that thing latched onto my ankle, it followed me back.
Yeah, I'd say that's a fair possibility. Have you felt that feeling of that impending doom and hatred follow you around since then?
Yeah.
Mm. And that's a very familiar feeling for a lot of people. I think I've had that before and not really been able to explain it, but it just feels like there's something that kind of wants your soul, if you know what I mean, and doesn't have the best in mind for you. I've certainly felt that before, and many other people have. I think it's unmistakable.
The reason I say mine is because I've had experiences after this with what I would consider to be a demon. And I think it's the same one that was supposed to be my torturer.
Okay. So is it tormenting you now in life?
Well, it was. It was for since it was like after I got saved, what I saved, I started to have all kinds of experiences in my home. I would have your typical poltergeist activity of stuff flying off the shelves, cabinets opening and closing,
Hmm.
um, uh, different things moving when they shouldn't move. I'd have all that type of stuff, knocking. One time I had a friend come over. Actually, I think this is a little bit of a funny story, and I
Okay.
told her, as I gotten used to it, and I was like, just ignore the knocking. I was like, don't pay it, no, never mind. Um, and it won't bother you. And she's like, she just looked at me like I was crazy.
As they do.
And later on that night, because I let her use my bedroom and I slept on the couch. Um, sure enough, she heard three big knocks right back to back to back, right at her head, and she came running out of that bedroom.
Yep.
And she's like, "Did you hear that? Did you hear that?" I said, "Ignore it." And she slept in the living room with me after that.
Yeah, those knocks of 3 usually are prescribed to be of a demonic variety, or scratches of 3. Anything kind of like that. It's said to be sort of like in most kind of like Catholic or ghost hunter lore, that is a mockery of the Holy Trinity. Whether or not that's true, I don't know, but it's definitely knocks of 3 that do seem to come from these things. It's a very significant number. And yeah, I think calling that a funny story is a great way to handle it, because usually using a bit of levity and humor and a kind of a positive outlook tends to ease whatever it is that's making these things happen.
Yeah, I have to try to laugh at them now because they did some pretty horrible things to me during their time, uh, while I had them actually oppressing me. Like I had instances like one time with my girlfriend, they had it to where I felt like she was being psychically attacked because she was in just this, she was in a mood she was never in before,
Hmm.
and then she ended up with a huge scratch all the way across her back, and then I challenged the thing, and I regretted that because that was one of the worst weeks of my life.
What mood was she in, first of all, that made you think that?
She was in such a depressive state. It was just so unlike her to be like that.
Normally she's a kind of a joyous person, would you say?
Normally bubbly and happy and everything like that. She was never just outright depressed like that.
Yeah, some sort of spirit of despair was weighing heavy on her, it sounds like.
And but when she left my house, she was perfectly fine. But she had that huge long scratch across her back. It went the full length of her body.
Wow. Head to foot?
No, I didn't mean. I shouldn't say that. I meant like uh, horizontally.
Oh, okay. I see. Yeah, that's very alarming. Especially a lot of the times when things like poltergeist activity start happening, I don't really think it's all that heavy because, maybe it's making noise, trying to keep you up at night, moving objects in front of you, trying to give you a little bit of a fright. But when something actually starts hurting, that's when it's getting serious.
And then I just tried to outright fight with the thing, and it just didn't work. And ended up having like message I felt like from on high, and I had like the most. I had a weird experience with that. By what I mean by that is, I had like the most. Like I felt like I was being psychically attacked and just put down, and like I was to the point I felt like I might try to do something to myself. And then like when I started to pray about it, that all changed pretty quickly, and I ended up having like one of the most joyous experiences of my life to like where I felt like endorphins that I've never felt before and felt happier than I've ever felt in my life.
Oh,
What I
yes.
felt in that moment, what I felt in that moment was better than any type of just anything you could take on this earth that would make you feel that way, or
Hmm.
any type of experience that can make you feel that way on earth anyway.
I've got to say, I'm familiar with that one too. I recall a time where I was just driving to work one day and I just had this overwhelming sensation of the love of God just wash over me. And I broke down in tears. I was like, I'm driving. I can't be crying while I'm driving. I made it to work safely, but it was just like weird timing for me. Like I just needed it there and then. I don't know why.
And I felt like in that moment too, it felt like it told. I felt like I was being told it's not going to be over yet. I had to learn a. There was a lesson for me to learn from all this. So I knew my struggles weren't going to be over with these things. There was something I needed to learn, but that took a long while for me to learn that. But I had to deal with a lot more experiences to learn what I needed to learn.
So, what is it do you think that it, is being taught to you through these experiences?
I think what it wanted me to do, what I was wanted to be told was to never show them fear, because the more fear you show them, the more powerful they become.
Absolutely. This is especially true with things like what we call the fear eaters, things like Shadow Man, the Dog Man, these creatures that seem to have every ability to harm or to hurt you, but instead just seem to frighten you and absorb that and soak in that fear that you exude. That's kind of the running theory on what those things are, is a fear eater.
Yeah, because actually, you interestingly say that. The one thing when it finally showed itself to me was a Hat Man.
Really?
Yeah,
That's the big boss when it comes to the Shadowmen.
yeah. Like the first time it showed itself to me was um I was in my room and it gave me its name eventually too. Uh
Wow.
I was finally able to coax its name from it. But anyway, the first time I met it was when I was laying in my bedroom and I was about to go to sleep, and then I heard like a knocking at my door, and I was like, I just figured it was going to be a normal night of this stuff again. And then the next thing I know, my bedroom door blows open, and there's a shadow man with a hat on at my door, and I get up to like confront the thing. I don't know what I'm going to do, but I'm not going to just. I feel like I need to try to confront it or something, but I was fearful of the thing, and it proceeded to it beat me, and it was one of the worst beatings I ever took in my life.
Like a physical fisticuffs beating?
Yeah, I woke
Wow.
up with bruises. I was covered in bruises everywhere and everything.
I'm sorry, man. That's honestly the first time I've heard of one of these things actually taking a fist to someone.
Yeah, and that's why I said it'd be an interesting story.
Yeah.
It did it hit it just beat the crap out of me. Finally, I just disassociated during it, and I think just I just took myself away from that moment, and I don't know what all exactly happened.
Can you describe for someone who is not familiar with what like a Shadow Man or the Hat Man are? Could you describe kind of what he looks like?
He was about to me he was about 6 feet tall, and it was just like a shadow being cast. It was like a it's like a mass like a just a shadow like it's what you cast behind you at the sunlight, just standing there, and it looked like he was wearing a fedora, like the old gangster hats.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was thinking. And you know, I was actually just thinking about it today because Belief Hole did their Hat Man episode recently, and I was just sort of picturing it in my head, and I was like, what if these things are like the ghosts of the 1940s gang leaders like Al Capone, just kind of causing trouble in the afterlife? I don't think that's really the case, but it was just fun to think about.
That is actually an interesting concept, though.
Yeah.
And then after that, though, I ended up having a lot of psychic attacks, like in my dreams and in my waking life. And I was going through a lot more depression stages. I wasn't able to sleep well. I'd go through a lot more insomnia because every time I dreamed, I'd dream of that thing. I'd wake like there was times like I'd have dreams of like I could figure out that it was a dream. I'd start lucid dreaming
Hmm.
and figure out it was a dream, and I was able to break free of it. But then I'd wake up in another dream, still trapped underneath of it, and it was just toying with me.
It's a dream within a dream.
Yeah, I got to points in life I never knew if I was actually dreaming or if I was in reality.
Oh, that's got to mess with your head.
Yeah, because of that thing. And finally, though, when I figured out, I was able to finally just through challenging it and with just through prayer, I was able to get the entity to tell me its name, and it told me its name was Tabal.
And you said you got that through prayer?
Yeah, through prayer and challenging it,
Okay.
and I tried to banish it But when I tried to banish it, I don't know if I did something wrong or if I was still too fearful of the thing or what. But I did something wrong and it brought friends.
Oh my.
The first time I met its friend was actually I was driving home one day and I seen like this woman dressed in weird clothes for definitely Southwest Virginia on the side of the road. Plus, she was dressed in a kimono, standing on the side of the road, and I was like, I seen that, and I did a double take, and it wasn't there. And then I kept driving, and then I just felt something in my truck, like I could feel something. And I just looked in my rearview mirror, and there she was sitting in my back seat, and about made me run off the road because it gave me the scare. It gave me one of the scares of my life.
Yeah, that's like a horror movie jump scare kind of thing.
Yeah, and I felt like she was actually a succubus,
Now, why do you think that? If she was just in your car?
just to reveal herself and say, "Hey, I'm here now, and I'm going to be one of your new tormentors."
Oh, great. I wanted to pause for just a moment and go back a little bit to the significance of finding the name of one of these entities, especially in like Catholic exorcism. Normally, they need to know the name of the demonic entity in order to do the banishment. So I imagine that's kind of what you were going for, right?
Yeah, but it didn't seem to work for me.
Well, not that time. No.
No, I think it was because I still had too much fear of these things.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm not sure exactly how all the sort of exorcism stuff works. I'm not an exorcist myself. I don't really plan to be, but I do know that's generally the route that you go down is get its name in order to command it. I'm sorry it didn't work.
It's just one of them things I just had to learn.
So after that, these things started getting more intense, right? You said he brought its friends along, and that thing was in the back of your car. Where does it go from there?
After that, I started having severe sleep paralysis. I would literally have it so bad, all I could do was just mumble really loudly because I started staying with my grandparents then, where I was just getting to such a depressive state. And I got to where I couldn't work because when I would try to work, I would have nervous breakdowns from just mental health. I wasn't taking good care of myself. And so I started staying with my grandparents. My sleep paralysis would be so bad that I would have to mumble really loudly. My grandmother would have to come in here and literally move my body around to make it break.
Yeah. So you were definitely crying out in the non-dreaming state. Physically, you were actually mumbling as loudly as possible as you were consciously saying these things.
Yeah, I mean, I would see these things and they'd just be sitting there laughing at me because they knew they had control over me and I couldn't do nothing against them.
And maybe it's only that's what they wanted you to think.
Um, that's what I thought. Yeah, you're right. That's what they wanted me to think. And they would pat me. And then that's when also the dreams started getting worse with me having more problems with like dream within a dream situations. And just, I'd have more problems mostly dealing with the succubus in them. People say the succubus likes to feed on love or on sexual favors. It's not real. They want to trick you with that, but
Hmm.
actually they want to feed off of fear.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. Yeah, I'm sure you heard the episode with Cody a couple episodes back where he had exactly the same experience where in his dreams he was being approached by someone he thought was incredibly attractive, and then they ended up just turning into a massive monster on top of him. That's
Yes,
definitely to provoke a fear response. That's not to get love out of you.
no, and this went on for a long while. I was having this stuff constantly from about of August of last year. It was like this until about March of this year. I was going through it severely like that, and during January of this year, I lost my pawpaw. He was a very big part of my life, a very big inspirational part of my life, and he had passed away on us. And Well, one night in March, I was just having a severe psychic attack from these things. And they were just oppressing me, and I felt really weak to them. I felt like I was going to do something. I finally just wanted to give up on these things and just didn't want to deal with it no more. And I called out again to God, and I even actually called out to my papa and said, I don't want to be afraid of these things no more. Can you all help me not be afraid? And then the next thing I know, I felt my papa, and I felt him come and protect me and just like get rid of those demons.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a very common thing with loved ones on the other side. Very often are there looking out for you, even when you don't know it.
And ever since that moment that I called out to him and called out like that, and I figured out that it was fear, because that's the moment I figured out it was the fear. I've not had any problems with them.
So that was a span of how much time would you say between your accident and then this point where you realized that you were just feeding them the fear that you're exuding whenever they showed up?
Probably about June of 2020 till March of 2022.
Oh, that's a long time. Were you able to still steadily work and keep your job and smooth things over with your employer while all this was going on? Because I know that must have been
No,
stressful. No, yeah,
no, what? No, I actually lost my job and everything like that, and because of this, all the oppression and everything I was under.
I'm sorry, man. That's really tough. It can affect your life in very real ways like that.
Yeah, but I'm trying to rebuild everything now and come back from there.
Did you ever try to explain to your employer what was going on, or did you just think that maybe it was too crazy of a situation to even try?
I figured it'd be too crazy of a situation to even try.
Yeah, I can understand.
Yeah, I feel like people don't like a lot of people don't believe in this stuff, and it's just like, but it's really out there. It's really does happen, and it's just like sometimes it just takes one experience for it to change you. Because I really wasn't. I was more of a skeptic than uh, before all this. Like I thought stuff was cool ideas and everything like that. I thought it was cool concepts and cool ideas and interesting stuff, but I never really believed that it was real until uh, I had that experience, and everything just opened up for me.
So here's another question I'm sure people are thinking right now is after your accident, were you put on any sort of like heavy medications?
Yeah, I mean, I was put on depressant medication and stuff like that because, I mean, that's what doctors thought. I mean, they thought I was depressed.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, of course they would. And I know that sometimes medications can induce these experiences, but that doesn't, to me, make them seem any less real. Some people would call them hallucinations, but sometimes I think a hallucination is just seeing something that's actually there you wouldn't normally be able to.
Yeah, I can agree with that.
So after you had gotten through this sort of dark part of your life, which happened earlier this year, as far as you said, February, right?
Or March was the last time.
March. Okay. Other things have been going on because you had sent me video evidence of weird things happening around your house.
Yep, that's when it seems like once the demons left, that's when I got to experience all the other stuff.
Oh, fun. It just kind of changed forms, I guess.
Yeah, once they left, it's like also I figured out that I have another sense. Like I can pick up on when like weird things are going to happen and like when weird stuff's around. Because I found that out by accident. Because I just didn't know if that was just me with the demons or not. Just constantly feeling them. I was like, oh, they're here. Oh, you know, thought that was just with them. But
Yeah.
then I figured out later on, no, that's actually I can feel when other stuff's around.
Yeah, it sounds like you're tuned into some of these, I guess you would call them supernatural entities that are hanging around you.
Like the first video I sent you of just that the howl. Now I already know some people are gonna say it's a coyote,
Hmm.
and
Yeah, I mean that's what I heard when I saw when I listened to the clip. It sounded like a coyote howling.
But me explain how that whole thing went down is at night I was just laying on the couch and I just kept hearing something howl. It sounded real far off in the distance at first. And I was like, huh, well, that's strange. And then it slowly felt like it was coming down towards my house. And there was only one animal. And I was like, well, that's strange. I was like, if that's a coyote, where's its pack?
Yeah.
I was like, I mean, I know they can get thrown out of packs, but I was like, but still, I was like, well, that's strange. It ain't with a pack or anything, or that it's howling for no reason. And so I woke my grandmother up, and she came in there. And for a good 10 minutes, we heard nothing. And then, I mean, there was just nothing. And then she's like, well, I guess I'm going to lay back down. As she was getting up to go to bed, it howled. It's like I felt like it knew she was leaving.
Hmm.
And then I opened the front door and we heard it better. It still felt far off. And it still felt like it was coming closer. Low with each howl, it felt like it was coming closer and closer. Until finally I walked out to get something from my truck. And that was the last howl that it did, was that one there.
Is that the one on the video?
Yeah. That was the very last howl it did. And it felt like it was almost on top of me, but I couldn't see anything.
Yeah, so this was a security cam footage that was on your house. And man, that thing does sound very close.
And like there's a big old open field in front of my house. And I could see nothing in it. I shined a light that you don't catch me on camera doing that, but I shined the light up through there looking for it. I see nothing. So I don't know where this thing was to be that close.
Yeah, that's pretty odd. I'm not going to say it's 100% definitely paranormal, but it very well could be.
Yeah. I mean, it's very odd coincidence anyway.
And there are certain entities that will use mimicry in order to confuse you and taunt you. Was this the only time you had an instance where it was like a coyote howling?
No, I've had other, now I've not had instances of coyote, but I've had other instances of other animals doing it.
Okay. Like what?
Now I've had instances of something trying to be an owl, and my grandmother was outside with me, and I knew it was something trying to pretend to be an owl because it was completely dead quiet outside. There was not a single other thing a sound of night. You didn't hear no crickets, no nothing else. All you heard was this thing cooing.
It's very common when a sort of a cryptid creature is in the area or other sort of paranormal phenomenon, that total silence.
And my mom was like, I looked at my mama and I was like, that is not an owl. Do not believe it is an owl.
What sort of owl call was it making?
Just a typical barn owl. And that's the second time I've ever heard something sound like a barn owl in the woods.
Very interesting. Yeah, owl calls are something that a lot of people that I've heard from have said Sasquatch like to mimic those owl calls, especially the barred owl. The hoo, 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 hoo. You know that one.
Yeah.
And the barred owls are big, so they can make a really long, or like a really loud, resounding hoot. But they say you can tell when it's something else trying to do it.
Yeah. And that's also, I found that the picture of that X I sent you is not far from my house.
Yeah, so you have a photo there with, it looks kind of like saplings have been pushed down to make an X formation.
Yeah.
And I couldn't see it in the picture, but in the email you said that the branches of both of those trees were kind of woven together.
Yeah. If you're like on Taunt and you see it in person, you can see like where it kind of looks like it's been twisted together.
Okay. Because otherwise I would have just passed right by that and not noticed a thing. But with the branches twisted and woven into each other, that's very strange.
And the thing too, it's right at the end of a road. So it looks like something would run, like I guess would like run an animal down that road and then have something else waiting for it as a kill zone. That's what my idea was.
So that might be like a marker spot for such a thing.
Yeah.
Okay. Interesting.
Then now I sent you a video. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm sorry to interrupt you there, but that's Southwest Virginia where you live. Our last guest, Rick Rellis, actually did an expedition down there and saw Sasquatch himself. And in all of my years trying to find stories of Sasquatch in Virginia, the southwestern area seemed to come up the most. So that's kind of your region there, out in Tazewell County and all that. Very strange stuff going on down there, and Sasquatch aplenty, so I hear.
I've not seen one in person, but I'm pretty sure I've had like casual run across with them. Not seen them in person yet.
Yeah, well, same. I've had instances where I'm like, could that have been the work of a Sasquatch? Very likely, but I don't know because I don't see it. So I'll just leave it up in the air.
And then I had sent you the video of the thing that has those looks like little bitty eyes that's invisible bouncing
Oh
across
my
my back
gosh.
porch.
That one was crazy. That's something that I can't just write off. It looked like two little glowing eyes without a body bouncing around on your back. I guess that's your back deck.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. Oh, it was weird. It's like something was skipping up and around on that and then just sort of stopped and tilted its head, or I don't know. It was crazy.
Now, I've already had people tell me, I didn't mean to interrupt you there, but I've had people tell me that it is a spider making a web.
No way.
But to set the camera off, you have to have something with mass at that distance. I mean, it's not just going to set off for a small bug at that distance. A bug has to be up close and personal to set the motion detector off.
I'm just going to go ahead and say it, man, because I completely agree with you. There's a lot of video evidence that I've seen of a lot of different things where I'm like, this is very inconclusive, or there's just nothing there, right? But with that, I was like, there's definitely, like, those are eyes. Those are definitely eyes. Unless you know how to do any kind of video animation, that's a legitimate capture of two glowing eyes just bouncing around on your deck. I don't know any other way to explain it.
And I'm not going to lie, I don't know nothing about computers. I really don't. So that came straight from the camera.
Yeah, everybody pause this podcast right now. Go ahead and click on that link in the show notes and seriously check out that video, that security cam video. It's something else.
What I think it's a Cherokee little person. It's like the old tales that the Cherokee used to tell, the little people that used to run in the hills and stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, a lot of Native Americans did have their little people. Some of them called them the moon people because they would only come out at night. I don't remember which tribe that was. I get them kind of mixed up because there's so many different stories, but
I think that was further down south.
Yeah, very well may be. But yeah, the Cherokee were around Virginia, and they had those stories of the little ones. I've had somebody in Charlottesville contact me, said he's seen one in broad daylight on top of a mountain. So I totally agree, they're out there. Whether that is what you caught or not, I don't know, because all we can see is the eyes. But your guess is as good as mine. And you said that you have a bit of Cherokee ancestry, right?
Yes, I do. I have my great grandmother on my dad's side of the family was full-blooded Cherokee. So I guess that would make me about 25% Cherokee.
And I think that there is something about a lot of people who do have native blood in them that makes them, for one reason or another, more sensitive to being able to see some of these experiences or have these experiences. I'm not sure why. And in your case, we could say that it was your near-death experience that really brought you to the realization or the ability to see this stuff. So I don't know which way it all goes. It's all just a bunch of I don't know, really, but I love talking about it.
Yeah. And I had another run-in with the little people one time, I think.
Yeah?
Yeah, it was up at a state park. Me and a friend of mine, we went for a hike up there, and we went down to the river as part of the state park. And another thing they have at the state park is don't take nothing from it. Like, don't take nothing out of the woods or anything, like pick up anything or stuff like that. Just leave it how you found it.
Okay.
Conservation reasons, as they say.
Could be.
But anyway, we were walking along the road to get to the trail we wanted to go down. And I kept hearing this deep, like, chatter in the woods. I didn't know what it was. I thought people were talking or something, but there was no one around. But it was like this deep little chatter, And I never could figure out what that was. And I also kept seeing small, like shadowy shapes around me, but I didn't say nothing to my friend because they didn't act like they heard anything or seen anything because I didn't want to seem like I was crazy. Because my friend I was with is a non-believer, and we kept walking along and everything like that, and we got to the trail finally, and we went up it for a little ways, and it got to the point where my friend had to make it back for an appointment, so we turned around and was coming down, but there was an area of just nothing but nice rocks, and she likes to paint rocks. So we was looking at some that had nice surfaces that she could paint on and stuff when we were picking them up. And we had literally, the trail was right beside us. And we had just stepped right off of it. I could still see the trail. But as I was bending down to get these rocks and stuff, I look up and the trail's gone. And I look at her, I'm like, where'd the trail go? And she's like, she's the same way as me. It's like, where'd the trail go? We can't find the trail now. And I feel kind of like there's like a fog over my head too. And I'm every way I go to try to get out of these woods, it's too thick. I can't seem to get anywhere because of how thick the woods are, except if I go deeper one certain way, in which I wasn't doing. Because I was trying to go the opposite way, which is the way out. And at first, I didn't know what to do. It felt like it was weird. And then finally, I looked at her and said, "If we drop these rocks, we'll get out of here." And she looked at me like I was crazy and stuff like that. I'm like, "Please believe me, if we drop these rocks, we'll get out of here." So she agreed with me and put the rocks back down, and I did too. I apologized to the woods, and then the trail showed up,
Wow.
and we got to walk our way out of there.
Something did not want you to leave with its rocks.
No,
It was trying to hold you there until you let it go, which is
yeah,
very funny. I guess in certain traditions, the fairies or the elves are said to live in the rocks. So you may have
oh,
been
I
trying to run off with something's home.
did not know that. And we also had a time distortion event right there.
Really?
Yeah, according to her walking app, we was in that spot for 50 minutes. But according to my watch and stuff that I had set, we were only there for about 30.
Hmm.
So somehow there's a 20-minute difference there between our two.
Yeah, it's a dilation or a slip in time.
Yeah.
That's very odd. Now, I don't know how exactly something like that would work, but this is not an uncommon sort of story. People being quote unquote pranked by the forest spirits sort of led into circling paths where they knew where they were going and yet somehow still ended up getting lost for a certain amount of time. I'm sure you're aware of oh goodness, what was his name? It was the boy who saw the bone swamp and then also the procession of invisible creatures in the woods. Also had missing
I've,
time when he got lost in the forest where they knew where they were going. Same
also,
sort of
I've heard
thing.
of that story, but I can't remember his name, but I have heard that story.
Michael was his name. I'm sorry, Michael.
Okay.
I still talk to him every now and then, but I just see his screen name and not his real name.
Yeah, it's just, I don't know. It's like, felt like I was going to become missing 411 there for a minute, though.
Yeah, you wonder sometimes with all of these disappearance cases. And another thing, Tazewell area right now, the past 2 years has been rife with unexplained disappearances and deaths. Jeff
Hmm.
Nadolny was pointing this out a little while ago. And, you know, love him or hate him, I know Jeff is kind of a controversial figure in the dogman community, but when I heard him talking about the Tazewell area, he cites the newspaper sources. He's called the local PD. He's done his footwork and knows that there's something very strange going on with all of the missing people and the deaths that have gone on in just the past 2 years. A very weird cluster.
Yeah, I know. I've actually looked into it too, and I never get no responses back from people because they just want to say it's accidents.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, there's definitely something more going on. Someone looks like they're mauled by an animal and found in a cave. And they won't call it a bear attack. I don't think they did.
No, I remember that one.
Yeah, that was pretty recent. Well, I'm glad you're you're alive from that one too, man. You may have
Yeah.
had more run-ins with death than you know.
Yeah, and I have one other missing time event too.
Oh,
Uh, yeah, I do actually. I was coming home from a friend's house, and I left their house at 9:45. It takes me 20 minutes to get home from their house. And when I was actually at my driveway, and I was about to pull in my driveway, and I remember blinking, and then when I opened my eye, and I'm on the right side of the road before I blinked. When I opened my eyes, I'm on the left side of the road, halfway pulled in the driveway, but at a very weird angle that I actually have to back up and re-pull in. And I'm seeing all kind of strange colors, like reds and greens and blues, and like a bright yellow. And I'm looking around, like up in the sky and stuff, to see if it's coming from there. But it's just like seems to be in my vision, and I don't understand it. I couldn't find nothing in the sky, but when I finally do get parked in the parking space and do climb out of the car, I'm looking all through the sky. I'm seeing these colors, but I can't displace where they're coming from. And even when I go inside, I'm still seeing these colors. And I look at the time, and it is 10:45. I'm like, huh? How can it be that late already? And I was like, there's about a 30-minute time difference there that shouldn't be there.
that is very weird.
And even my wristwatch, it's an old, it's still analog. I don't use digital. It was off by 30 minutes, around 30 minutes.
Wow. So it wasn't just in your head. You were in some sort of weird time zone, and I don't mean Eastern time.
I don't, and I have no idea what that was.
Yeah, I couldn't call it. That's the colors and the time. I've never honestly heard anything quite like that. But nothing got you.
No, not to my knowledge. I
Let's hope.
don't know what happened in those 30 minutes.
I mean, I have bad memories, so I can't really remember what I was doing with most of today, but at least I know that I was conscious for all of it, right?
Yeah, understand that. I mean, I really don't know what happened at all in those 30 minutes. It's gone. And that makes me wonder what in the world happened.
Now, if you had the opportunity to do like a regression hypnosis, would you go for that just to see what might
Yeah,
have
I
happened?
would actually.
Yeah.
I would, just to see what those 30 minutes were.
I'm not quite sure exactly who does regression hypnosis in your area, but I I'd place a bet that there probably is someone who knows how to do that around. I'd have to do some digging.
Yeah, I definitely would be happy to, because I want to know what happened to me.
Yeah, yeah, I could imagine why. I mean, just the idea that something may have been messing with you, in a physical manner, right? Like when you hear of abduction cases, people have implants, oftentimes show up, or just weird substances in their clothing, or strange burn marks or rashes on their body. In this case, you didn't have that necessarily, or at least nothing that you know of.
No, I didn't have like no marks or nothing on my body or anything. I just had that weird vision stuff.
Okay, yeah, I guess that might be a clue. It'd be interesting to find out.
And then I guess I had the latest stuff going on with me now, which is what I think to either be a skinwalker or a wendigo.
Okay, well, those are two very different things. Why? What makes you think that it could be either one?
Just with the different type of actions, I guess, going on around me. Or
Okay,
I'm mostly leaning towards skinwalker.
sure.
Um, but it's just what has been going on around the house.
So can you describe some of that for us?
Well, the first thing that ever happened was my mom was like, "Oh, look, there's some deer up in the field," and I went to look, and now I'm in the house, and there was this deer standing up in the field, and it kind of looked sickly, and I wanted to take a picture of it in case I needed to turn it in or anything like that to the game warden, because I didn't know if it was had the wasting disease or whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
And so, like I said, I'm in the house, and I take a picture of it. And as soon as that shutter sound snapped on my phone, that deer looked at me behind. Like I said, I'm behind glass and everything. That deer looked at me and just sit there and stared me down. And I felt like it. I don't know why, but I just got this weird, creepy feeling all over me.
And you said it was how far away?
It was at least a football field away,
Okay, so a good 100 yards out there.
and it just stared into me, and it felt like it was looking into my soul,
Yeah, that's not normal coming from a deer.
and it just creeped me out real bad.
A buck or a doe?
It was the doe, and I just slowly closed the door, and that thing kept looking at me till I closed the door. And then I walked over to the window to see if it was still there, and it wasn't there no more.
Hmm. And that was just a matter of what, seconds later?
Yeah.
Very interesting.
Then the next thing that happened after that is when I sent you those parts of that squirrel that was kind of arranged in a. I think I sent you that picture.
You did, yeah.
Parts of a squirrel kind of arranged in a shape.
It looked like two legs and a tail, if I remember, right?
Yeah, it was just kind of arranged into shape, and I just found that on my back porch. You would think if it's an animal eating that, it would just kind of throw them here, there, or everywhere, not kind of leave them in a little neat pile.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a bit strange.
That happened like within a week after seeing the deer.
Okay.
And then one night, I was outside about 2 o'clock in the morning. I heard a battle horn, and that was the strangest thing I've ever heard, just out in the middle of the night. And when I heard it, I immediately felt like I was being hunted.
And do you have neighbors close by where if they were to make us, like, say they were to have a horn and blow on it in the middle of the night, would you be able to hear it coming from that?
No. Yeah, and I don't. And this is like one of them old like horns made out of like a ram horn or something. That's what I'm
Mm-hmm.
meaning. That's like the kind of horn I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah, I know what you mean. I would say that does pretty closely fall in line with some of the phenomenon you'd get with a skinwalker. And a lot of people will denounce that, saying, "Oh no, you're not, in skinwalker quote unquote territory," which is like the lower Midwest of the United States, which is silly to me because Navajo people aren't restricted to only living in the Midwest, like where we don't have them in prison camps. There, they can go wherever they want. They're free citizens. So it only makes sense that you could find a skinwalker just about anywhere they can go.
yeah, and that's also when I heard the owl noises too. One time was during this that I talked about earlier, and then also one night my friend came down, and I went out to my truck to get a charging box for her, and she said she's seen a woman, like an old crone looking woman, standing in the back of my truck, like looking over at me.
Ugh.
And she tried to yell at me to like hurry up and stuff. And cause she's never had a hallucination. She's never hallucinated in her life. She just seen that figure and it scared the crap out of her. And she told me to hurry. And then I was like, I did. I got to the door and she was kind of pale. And I was like, what's wrong? And she's like, just get in, just get in. And she told me, and that's like, huh, that's really strange. Later that night, I felt like something attacked me in my dream, and I went around the house later that night because I still felt it around. And in the window of the room she was staying in, there it looked like a figure of a woman with just this giant hand that fingers looked like they extended out to claws.
The old hag is a very common nighttime intruder that will feast also on people's fear at night. This could be a return of something like that. Or as you said, it could be the entity that is perhaps the skinwalker that we're talking about. Did the person who saw it say that it looked anything close to Native American?
She said it had darker skin tone.
Okay.
It wasn't like a white person or a anything like that.
Yeah, that's very scary. Not because they're dark in skin tone, but because that sounds like it could be a Native American skinwalker.
Yeah, because she said it looked kind of like a witch. Is what she said she saw.
Yeah. Well, skinwalkers are witches.
Yeah,
Plain and simple.
and that's what I mean. That's what I felt like. I felt like it was like an old Appalachian witch who'd become one. I just seen that in the window, and I battled, and I just had tried to battle it spiritually, and it left. That was a that was a weird night.
That's intense, I've got to say.
That was just a crazy situation. I felt like because I didn't expect to just go in there and see that in the window. I almost showed. I was afraid. Almost showed it fear, but I remembered what I was had been told is because I don't know if these entities feed on fear too or not.
I imagine they do.
Yeah, I think they do have some sort of like wanting of the fear and wanting of you to have fear and stuff like that.
Yeah, and that's just a hunch of mine, but in most cases that I've heard of, when people see something like that, it's not uh, causing them physical harm. In some cases, they actually do, but usually not.
And another instance with it was I went up to check my barn and I was walking back down the road and I had a brush axe with me because it was just if I had to clear anything up at the barn. And I got under the street light and something in the brush over beside me. If you've seen it, you know the brush is real thick and you can't really see anything into it. But if you see how you could see that something was really tall, as high as the brush was moving, and it's something in there started moving around really quickly, and it looked like it was going to come out at me, but I just faced towards it and squared up on it, and just started to pray, and but I could hear its breathing, and it sounded more like a human who was like animalistic,
Okay.
because it didn't sound like a bear or a bobcat or anything, and it seemed to be on 2 feet too. Because I didn't hear like four paws hitting the ground all at once. I only heard like two things hitting the ground at one time, just real swiftly is what I was hearing.
And when it was breathing, did it sound like it had really big lungs?
Yeah, it sounded fairly large lung size. Yeah,
Okay. And it was just watching you, right?
yeah,
You got some strange things. You got some really strange things going on out there.
yeah. I know. It's like my house. I don't know. It's attracted to me. I swear, it is attracted to me.
Yeah, dude, you're like the ringleader of the paranormal carnival down there.
And it's like too, if I go out and sit on the porch for too long, I feel like I'm being psychically attacked, and I think that comes from the skinwalker.
Yeah. Oh, definitely.
And it's like all of a sudden I'll be in a decent mood and everything like that, and all of a sudden I'll just bottom out to severe depression, and I know what that is, and I'm like, nope, nope, nope. I gotta start spiritually turning that around to make myself not that way, and it will instant. Then I'll start instantly feeling better
Well, that's good.
when I do that.
Yeah, I can't imagine what it would feel like to feel like you're not even welcome on your own porch. You know?
Yeah, it sucks, and I I don't know really how to get rid of this thing.
Well, my friend, it sounds to me like you need to put on the full armor of God. I will definitely have you in my prayers at night. And for anyone who's listening right now who's gotten any sort of good advice in dealing with strange things like this, I encourage you, if you're watching on YouTube or Rumble, put some of that stuff in the comments down below so that we can look it over. You know, for the sake of our friend Matt here.
Because I've tried the saging around the house. It didn't seem to work for the skinwalker, and it didn't seem to want to do anything for it. And I've just only thing that seems to work is just to pray when it shows up.
Yeah, that's some really interesting stuff. I honestly don't know much better than you do about how to get rid of something like that, but maybe we can find out together.
Yeah, I'd like to because I wanted that thing to be gone. It's it's getting a little old, and but my luck is that thing goes, and I get something new.
Yeah, right. It seems like that might be the case. They're just sort of waiting in line. Once you get rid of one thing, something else is about to come right around the bend.
Yeah,
So, Matt, we're at just into the season of October now, and this is the time in folklore where they say the veil is the thinnest between this world and the next world. Have you ever noticed anything sort of ramping up around this time of year?
I have,
Yeah.
honestly. I noticed it was like more intense with the. I haven't now. This year will be different for me since the demonic oppression's gone. So it'll be more of an interesting experience to see what I see. But I know last year when I had the last couple years when I had the demonic oppressions, it seemed more active in October.
Yeah, that's pretty interesting. I think it seems to be that way pretty universally as well. We'll keep in touch over the course of the next couple of months and let me know. I'd love to hear whatever happens.
Oh, I will,
And yeah,
because it
yeah.
will should be interesting. I'm interested to see how this month will go because I really do feel like it's going to be an interesting one coming up.
Well, also tell me if just nothing happens, because like I said, I'll be praying for you, dude.
Well, I I don't know. I'm starting to get to the point where I'm getting used to it, and I'm kind of I don't like the bad stuff, but I like it when it's an interesting stuff goes on. I don't always have bad stuff happen to me.
Yeah.
Um, I want to end on this good note. Is um, there's a graveyard that was destroyed by people in the 50s up above my house, and it's an African American graveyard. And I'm trying to do stuff to help, trying to find people that can help me figure out who these people were and um, what their names are and stuff, to bring them back to them because I felt these spirits came to me one night and asked me if I would help them and to find their names. So I want to do that for them.
I've heard of projects like this before with the African American burial grounds where they're just sort of put in unmarked graves and forgotten. And yeah, that's certainly no way to honor the dead. And I think it's a beautiful thing when someone tries to bring that sort of recognition that the people deserve to them, even in death.
Yeah, because I don't. That just. Okay, I was so sad to hear when I found out that these people had just destroyed their graves. They took their gravestones and just threw them in the creek and just destroyed them and built a building on top of them.
Yeah. Well, I wish you all the strength and luck in that in that effort. More power to you, man. Awesome.
Well, thank you.
So, Matt, thank you so much for reaching out and sharing your stories with us, especially on ending on a very beautiful and positive note there. Is there anything that you would like to promote or just say before we go ahead and end the interview right there?
No, I just I would don't ever think you're crazy. That's the big thing. Don't ever think you're crazy. I thought I was for the longest time, and then I realized I wasn't. And it's just that this stuff is real and it's really happening to me. And what I've experienced is stuff I couldn't ask in a lifetime for that I've just done in a short time.
Yeah, the world's crazy. You're not crazy. Trust me. We do live in a very crazy world full of unexplained things, and you heard it here, folks. There are some things that you just have to accept. You don't know what it is. It's just all there is to it.
So there you have it, everyone. Matt has lived a rather enchanted life since he had his near-death experience, to put it lightly. And if any of you out there listening find it hard to believe in stories like that of the afterlife, that is just one of many stories of that same sort of nature, in which someone has either died or come dangerously close and have awoken reporting on being transported to different planes of existence, different planes of reality, where they may see heaven or hell. Loved ones who have passed may be waiting for them in a particular place, and strange grottos that can't really be explained. People have even reported seeing colors that don't exist in this reality, and hearing music that is beyond music, just so beautiful and harmonious and beyond anything that we can really comprehend. Having grown up in the church, I've heard many first-hand accounts of such things happening, so it didn't really come as much of a surprise to me to hear another one here today. And now it seems like Matt has attracted the attention of something that seems like a skinwalker. Whether it is or not, I don't know. But a little information on the skinwalker of Navajo folklore. These creatures, as you might call them, are really just people who are medicine men who basically chose the wrong path. See, in Navajo medicine, the elders all learn about the good magic and the dark magic, and it is for them to choose which path to take. And of course, some choose to go down the path of evil, and in order to become a skinwalker, or as they call it, the Naldlushi, the medicine man must kill a loved one in order to receive that power. So it's no small task to become one of these transformative witches. And it's not only in Navajo legend that these things exist. Other tribes have them by different names. It's just the skinwalker is most pop culturally relevant. And even in Europe, there are some similar stories. But I wanted to address that and make it a little clearer, because if you're anything like me and dig online for stories on forum boards and whatnot, you're going to see a lot of people out there calling just about anything under the sun a skinwalker. It's a meme at this point. People are just calling things skinwalkers. And it's rather annoying. And I don't mean that as derogatory. I think people just do not know what a skinwalker is for the most part. And especially if you're the kind of person who likes to watch scary stuff on TikTok or YouTube. Anything weird will be called a skinwalker. And honestly, I think that it is just a bit disrespectful. But I digress. It's been wonderful doing this show for everybody for a year. I'm so grateful for everyone who's tuned in, for those of you who have emailed me to share your stories. Here's to another year. And if you're one of those people who have emailed me and are still waiting to hear back, well, I respond to every email, so check your spam folder. There's a couple of responses I've sent out that I haven't received responses back from yet, so I'm just putting that out there in case anyone has missed my emails. And going forward, I've been adding a little more sound design to the podcast. Today especially, you've probably noticed that I've ramped up the sound design for the episode, ratcheted it up by a couple notches. Let me know if you like that. The background sounds, the music, you'll definitely notice it sounds a bit different. So yeah, let me know if you like that or if you just prefer the dry audio during the interviewing process. I'm really interested in hearing what you guys think. Me personally, I kind of like it both ways, so I'm going to let you guys weigh in there. And that's it to kick off the October season. We are bringing you the spooks here at Odd Virginia. Y'all sit tight. We'll be back with more very soon.